people get into entrepreneurship, right? And I think the reason why people get into entrepreneurship is they're bitten by a bug or a kida.
So good evening, everyone. Welcome to the sixth workshop of Entrepreneurship Week. At EIC, we believe that knowledge of different domains hold an important place in an entrepreneur's toolbox. Knowing how to apply domain knowledge in your venture is very important for any startup. So we bring a mega collaboration with all the domain clubs at IIM Rohtak to equip the budding entrepreneurs with the key to the perfect start. For today's workshop, we have IIM Rohtak's Analytics Club Organon with us. I'll now invite Mehak from Organon to take over.
Thank you, Paris. First of all, I would like to give a warm welcome to our guest and give a brief introduction for the audience. Data analytics can be used by everyone within a country to increase productivity and enhance decision making. It aids the entrepreneurs to make smart, calculated, and informed decisions about their startup. Therefore, it is very important for all of us to learn more about the role of analytics in startups. Mr. Amardeep Sibia is founder and CEO of Drishya AI. Drishya is developing large-scale AI solutions for the energy sector covering extraction, generation, transmission, and consumption. He has over 25 years of professional experience. He spent over 17 years in Goldman Sachs in the US, UK, and India, where he led various engineering and operations teams. Subsequently, he was the CTO at Earth to Orbit and CEO at Satshore, both companies dealing with satellite data analytics. He is an alumnus of IIM Bangalore and Thapar Institute of Engineering, Patiala. Sir is a member of Confederation of Indian Industries National Committee for IT and also a mentor at Techstars Bangalore. He also teaches analytics at IIM Bangalore.
Okay. Thank you so much. Thanks for the warm introduction. So are we ready to go or are we waiting for more people?
Sure, sir. We are ready to go.
Okay.
People will join in.
Okay. So before I dive into what I'm going to talk, and I have thought about a few things, but can I know, what's the background of which streams people are from? And I believe we've got, 1 hour, 15 odd minutes. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Okay, cool. So how many people are, if I can have a very quick kind of, show of hands, how many people from IT background?
Sir, almost around 30 to 40% are from IT background.
Okay. And how many people have had startup experience? Anybody?
Sir, a few of us have already startup experience, but we are all looking forward to have startup in future.
Okay, cool. Okay. So what I'll do is twofold. Okay. So I've divided the session into two sections. One, how to analyze startups. Okay, how startups can use analytics, and then I'll use my startup as a case study. Okay, so what's the journey of startups? What happens, and then my particular company, just to kind of take it as a case study as to how things are, and let's keep it open-ended. Ask me questions anytime you want. Okay. Okay, so let me share my screen. This is Google Meet. Okay. Okay. Are you able to see my screen?
Yes,
okay, sir. Now it's visible.
Okay, cool. So, okay, so, people get into entrepreneurship, right? And I think the reason why people get into entrepreneurship is they're bitten by a bug or a kida. Okay. Otherwise, normally people will not get into that. Okay. And this kida normally feeds on something on, on people's desire to be successful and masters of their own destiny. But generally nowadays, it actually feeds on something like this, which is news from yesterday. Unacademy reaching a $2 billion valuation. Great. Okay. But the interesting thing is they were just valued at $1 billion in September. So what really happened in 2 months that they went to $2 billion? Any ideas? What would have happened? Would the business have changed in 2 months? No, right? Investment, yeah, of course, investment, but like literally what would have driven that? Okay, so there could have only been two things: that somebody else valued the trajectory of the company, okay, based on a slightly different valuation scale. Okay, but ARR of 100 mil, yeah, okay, but ARR of 100 mil will basically take you, multiply by 10 will take you to probably a 1 bill valuation, right? If you're taking those kind of metrics. Okay, and ARR of 100 mil is not even going to give you an EBITDA of the EBITDA multiple. So certainly there are certain other things that are in there. Okay, so you kind of, I'm glad you kind of brought up this term ARR and all these, and so these are all kind of metrics that startups will look at. Okay, but let's go further. All right, what does it actually? What is there, right? What is that business? So a startup is actually a business, and their business is this 2 billion watch minutes per month. Okay, that is what they are being valued for. How much is that value of those minutes? Okay, yes, their monthly revenues have gone from, the trajectory is there, but additionally, okay, what is it that when they are raising this money, what is it that they are doing? Their revenues are not actually growing organically. They are also buying up other companies, acquisitions. Okay, so by buying up other companies, so that means other startups are actually exiting, which again brings us to another thing, that when you are building a startup, essentially you are looking at an exit. The exit could be so the exit is certainly not investment. The exit is either an IPO or an acquisition. So don't know whether the guys who exited, who Unacademy bought out, are the winners, or the founders of Unacademy. They are the winners. Right now, it's the jury is out there. Okay, because somebody has already sold something and made money. The others are still in the process of making money. They are still working towards it, right? So the fact of the matter is, when you're building a startup, okay, you're building a business. You're not building just a product. Okay, so when you're building a business, and that kind of brings me to when you're talking about analytics in startups, okay, you're ultimately using data to drive your business. But again, the challenge, so any idea what challenges startups face?
Scalability.
Scalability comes much later.
So funding,
So
profitability.
marketing, reaching making your product reach to the exact audience.
Okay. Something before that?
Right founders.
Okay. What else before that?
Market research.
It's the right problem.
Yep. You're correct, right? Right problem. Okay. But even if you find the right problem, what is the other problem that startups face?
Is it profitable to solve that problem?
No, the right problem is there, right? So you found the problem. The second part of the problem is execution. Okay, so you are growing a business. You go up a particular path, but when you're growing up that particular path, okay, the path. Uh, so you don't have enough resources. Funding is one, but you don't have resources. You don't have time. Okay, so these are two things. Okay, so with these two limited things, startups need to be extremely focused. Okay, if you're not focused, you will waste time, you will waste resources, all of that. So let's walk through that journey. Okay, so so all of this, right? That's the way they have hit all of these metrics, okay, to hit that valuation. But the question is, right, the big, it is a unicorn now. But the question comes up, is this, okay, what type, if it's an early stage startup, all right, with just 4 founders, what is the analytics that those founders need to look at? Because even to get to that next stage, you need to kind of survive and get to that stage. So what is it that you will be looking for? Any ideas? You guys are the Entrepreneurship Club, right?
You would have to understand whether your existing strategies are working or not.
Strategies are too far ahead.
Is there a scope of growth in the industry which we are planning to enter?
Okay. Okay, how would you find that?
By doing thorough market research and understanding if the
How would
customers are
you
willing to pay.
how would you do that?
Mostly through
You have to start
surveys.
up with 4 people.
I think internet
Right.
surveys would be our #1 choice.
Is that so?
So the data about the traction that has come for the product and recurring number of people who are willing to pay for the product.
How would you even know that, right? The product doesn't, at 4 people, you may not even have a product. Okay, so it's a chicken and egg story. Okay, have you guys heard of this thing called the BMC? The business model canvas?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay. Okay, so we'll come to it. Okay, so the thing is, why I put this question out there, at various stages of the company, you need different types of data. You have to collect that data, and internet survey will not get you that data. And the reason why the internet survey will not get you the data is because you have to go after a particular customer segment. Okay, that means you have to get primary data from those particular customers. Okay, and when we are talking about that, and I'll come to it, okay, so what you are talking about is specifically the pains, the gains, or the jobs for that particular customer that you're going to solve. And you will not get that on doing an internet survey. Okay, let me give you an example. Okay, my company works in the Canadian market. Okay, we are working in that particular energy market. The only way we are working with certain oil and gas and renewable energy companies who work for a particular type of oil extraction, which is called oil sands. The only way I can find out what's happening and what are the problems with the customers in that area is by talking to the customers over there. That's the only way you will find it. Now, what happens is, when you're talking about this, right? So you can have a B2B or a B2C kind of company, or a B2G company for that matter. Okay, in each one of these cases, finding what the customer needs is the most important thing. Okay, why that is the most important is because of this reason. Okay, we know that this reason is 75% of the startups will fail. Okay, why they fail is 40% of that is because they are trying to build something that people don't want. And the only way you will find that is by talking to the customers at that early stage, getting in front, reaching out to the customers and finding what that need is. Okay, otherwise, I mean, in the last, I mentor startups, right? Last night I had a conversation with one startup, and the week before another startup, one startup in Sweden, the other startup in Bangalore. Very strong technical people. Okay, they know they are building, they know a problem, they are building the problem, the solution. But where they were failing was they were not talking to the customers. They were not actually finding out what is that exact minimum, product that they need, the customer needs, at which point they will actually, sell. Okay, so that is the important thing, right? We talk about that MVP. How would you even know what that MVP is? So you have, as a startup at that very early stage, you have to do a lot of analytics, but it's not quantitative analytics, it's qualitative analytics. Okay, without that qualitative analytics, without actually having that voice of the customer, you will build something wrong. So you cannot actually build something. Okay, when we started doing things, and when I talk about my company's journey, when we started doing things, okay, so when we started doing things, we actually didn't build anything till the time we had not talked to 3 or 4 different oil companies. Okay, understand what the problem was. We had a premise, but they guided us to the problem. That this is where we are actually facing. Yes, we are doing AI analytics. Everybody is, but this is the problem that we want to solve. Of course, we've then built a product on top of that. Okay, just a second. Okay, so that's the point, right? At that stage, you are collecting qualitative data, and you're analyzing that heavily. Okay, and the reason behind this is you mentioned that the team is wrong. Actually, if you think about it, right, majority of the team only becomes wrong much later on. Okay, the team, if you have a market and a product mismatch, okay, yes, you will have the wrong team. Okay, but that the team is generally easier to solve. Okay, that part is, if you not hit that initial stage, you will be wrong. You will face a problem. Okay, and why that problem exists is because when you are doing, especially when we are building something called an innovation-driven kind of enterprise, you go through this thing called the hockey stick curve. So at the initial stages, when you are building things, you are actually in the red. Okay, your costs are higher than your revenues, so you are bleeding money. Okay, so when you're bleeding money at that point, okay, the revenue will only come once you kind of hit that right product fit, or what's called the product market fit. Okay, so that is the point I'm trying to make, right? You have to collect as a startup, you have to collect a whole lot of that data, okay, to actually start building those plans. So what will be your revenue plan, right? Which customer segment you're going to go after, how you're going to do your customer acquisition is driven by this data. Okay, And that becomes important because what when we talk about innovation, what you're ultimately talking about is an invention multiplied by commercialization or the business model. Okay. Majority of the time, the product is just the invention. Okay. It's the commercialization of the business model where what you really need to work on. Okay. In essence, if you look at a company basically stands on three pillars. The product or kind of execution pillar, the marketing pillar, and the finance pillar. It's a three-legged stool. Okay. If one of them is taller, the others two are short, this stool is going to topple. Okay. And that is the point when, especially as a startup, right? I'm not talking from the domain of enterprise analytics over here. I'm talking from a startup, right? All three matter. Okay. And in that case, especially when we are talking in terms of what data you will collect, you will ultimately start collecting data all three areas for you to actually be able to be successful. Okay. Have you heard this thing called burn rate? Right? A startup has finite money. You're not earning money, you're burning money. Okay, where will you burn that money? Okay, so the burn rate becomes a very important metric, or you are trying to figure out where that is going and how you are going to reduce the burn or optimize the burn. Okay, you're continuously looking at that as a startup. Okay, you certainly in a bigger business you will do it, but in a startup it becomes important because you may only have cash to live for. The company may only have cash to live for like 3 or 6 months. Okay, if your burn rate is reaching that point where you have 6 months, you have to do a fundraise. Okay, so when you do a fundraise, now what happens? Let's take the case of even Unacademy. Okay, they did a fundraise. They did 150 mil, in September. Okay, I know they are doing massive amount of customer acquisition. Okay, as they are doing massive amount of customer acquisition and buying out also doing inorganic growth of acquisitions to kind of just pull in more customers, they have to have more money. Okay, so they done another fundraise. They sold more of the company to actually fund the rest of the expansion. Okay, that is the game over here, right? You are always doing that. You are trying to do that fundraise to fund your expansion, but when you're funding that expansion, the funders are going to ask for some metrics. Okay, we look at some of those metrics, what those come along, but literally, right, all these three matter as to where you're going to spend. Okay, so what I'm sure you guys have seen this thing, right? The lean startup cycle. Okay, so why this is important? Okay, so you are kind of going across these kind of cycles where you start from an idea stage. At each point, okay, in the first stage, you are going to find the customer's pain point. Okay, then you'll come up with the minimum viable product. Okay, that will enable you to kind of go into a product build. You will try to build a product that meets the market. Once you hit that product market fit, you will then go into the growth cycle. And in the growth cycle, you especially if you're looking like a SaaS market, you look at these things called the pirate metrics. Okay, so that is the normal cycle, growth cycle of a startup. Okay, at each stage, you will be looking at different data points. Okay, and at each stage, you will actually be raising different money from different funders. Okay, so these again, what happens is why these you have different funders, because different. So today, if you look at the money markets, let's say the US treasury market or the interest rates in the US or Japan, for that matter, right? They are almost, Japan is negative, US is, US is almost zero. Okay. And on top of it, but on the other side, Wall Street is doing very well. Okay. So what are the two things? People who need, the investors who need returns, okay, and who are looking for higher returns, okay, they can't put that into the market where the interest rates are so low. They can't put that over there. Okay. So what are they doing? They are actually starting to put in early stage guys, an early stage which is a higher risk, investment. They are looking for higher returns. So let's say if we look at this thing, right, the very early stage, a person will put, say, a quarter bill, but take, say, 20% of the company. Okay, because the risk is very high. As you go up, that same 20% of the company at, say, Series C will come at like 55 million. Okay, because what you have done is you've proven the company, you've proven the market, you've proven that you're going to grow, and now you're going to. So that is at different stages, people who are looking for different types of returns will come in and put that amount of money. Okay, so that's the game that is playing over here. Okay, and today, if you look at, say, B2B SaaS startups in India, okay, they are actually getting a lot of funding. The B2B SaaS startups in India are, if you look at the funding that happened, say, COVID hit, the funding dropped for the months of April and May. Okay. But if you look at the valuations now, the valuations are actually higher now compared to last year. Okay. Two reasons why the valuations are higher: because the money is there to invest, is looking for home to invest. Now, what also happens is, if you look at that thing, right, 75% of the startups will fail. Okay, the VCs are looking to get into the deals, so they already know if they have 20 startups in their portfolio, 16 are going to fail, but they want to get into those other 4. Right. So that's their. So for them, the risk is not the failure. For them, the risk is not to get into a successful one. Okay, that's their mindset. Okay, and again, if it's an early stage funder, okay, if you look at the funder's mindset, what do you think they are looking at? Right. If you talk to any VC or any funder, what is the first question that funder is going to ask or think about? Any ideas?
Scalability.
No, not profitability, not scalability.
Growth.
Nope, not growth either.
Traction.
The founding team.
I'm sorry, nope, not founder team either.
Traction.
Those all come much later. All of those come much later.
How many users you can get on board? User acquisition?
Nope. All of that is nothing. None of those matter. Especially if you're talking an early stage funder. So you guys said you want to start, right? So you have to think from the early stage point of view. Yes, market size, yes. Utsav is saying market size. Yeah, you're kind of going in the right direction. Okay. So I said I work with the oil and gas sector in Canada. Okay. What type of funder will fund me? Tell me. Yeah. So basically what happens is the first thing the funder thinks is this idea something that I like? Okay. That's the first thing, right? The second thing that they look at is, can I see a business in this? Can I see a business being built in this area? Okay. If those two matter, then they see whether this team can build that business and give me those returns. Okay. That's the way funders, whether it's a VC, okay, the VC will also see, okay, you know what, can I understand this? Because the VC has raised money from their limited partners, and they have to go and tell them where the money is being deployed. So the first thing, the limited partner who's raised the, so here's a question: what's a VC? Venture capitalist, right? So you hear all these venture capital firms, okay? So they don't have money themselves. They have actually raised the money from others who have given them the money, okay? So what they are saying is, a VC will say, I'm raising 100 mil fund, okay? So they'll go to people who will give them the money, okay? And the VC will then say that I'm going to give you, say, 10x return over 7 years or 5x return over 7 years, okay? So if over 7 years, so if you look at it, right, 7 years, 100% is what? 7% generally, okay? So they are giving you 5 times that return, okay? Now, how do I do that? I get into the early stage who are growing faster, but there's a risk. Okay, how do VCs earn money? On the money that they've been given, they will take 2% of management fee every year. And then when an exit happens, they will take 20% of that. That's how they earn the money. That's their model. Okay, but now to earn that money, they have to then go and say, look, I give you assurance that I'll get you into a winner. Okay, that's the way that works. Okay, so when that is happening, so in that scenario, right, that's the way the VCs are working, and that's the way the funders, right? So is this idea good? Do I like the idea? Can I see a business in it? If I see a business in it, can this team build right? So the team matters, or the founders matter at that point. Okay, so that's the general thing. Okay, so what you have to then do, right, as a founder, you have to then prove that you are the right people. Okay, so to prove the right people, then you have to do a whole lot of work in terms of, identifying that you've done the right market, right? You've found out how you're going to do customer acquisition. You found out at various stage how you're going to grow the company. And that kind of brings you to this thing called the business model canvas. Okay, so how you think about the business model canvas is, you would have seen this, right? But the way to think about this is in this manner. You start with identifying your customer segment. In there, what are the pains, the gains, and the jobs that you're going to solve for customers? And that is important data that you will have to collect. Okay, in our case, one of the products that we built is for the engineering companies that work with the oil and gas companies. Okay, so if you look at an engineering plant, oil and gas plants over there are very complicated. So they do a lot of engineering drawings. Okay, and the engineering drawings are there for plants that are 10 years old, 20 years old, or whatnot. When they have to do an update, they have to pick up these drawings. They have to manually go through those. What we've done with them is actually deployed computer vision, NLP, relationship modeling to actually convert these engineering drawings into a digital twin of the plant. Now, some of the tasks that were taking 100 hours or 200 hours are now a query. Okay, so that's a pain that was there that we solved for them. There was a job there were jobs I'll get into further detail. There were jobs that they were doing in terms of engineering analysis that we've now automated. But that is the thing, right? You have to find the customer segment. You have to find that pain and those jobs that are important for those customers. And only once you fix that, okay, that's when you know that you got the right customer segment. Okay. And then you kind of get into the value proposition you will create, but more importantly, what channels you will build to acquire the customer. Okay. So if you don't do this, this is business, right? This is the business model. How are you going to acquire the customer? What is the cost of acquiring the customer? What is the cost of retaining the customer? Okay, how will you? So that leads into how you're going to even interact with the customer. Okay, is that going to be through, once, especially after you've, acquired the customer? Okay, is there going to be a call center? Is there going to be all of these things matter? Okay, this work you have to do. Okay, and then how you're going to actually convert that into revenue? What is what will be the customer willing to pay you? Okay, that revenue streams. So let me give you an example. One of my another buddies, they are building a marketplace for textile business. Okay, the textile business is a massive business in India. I think it's about $200 billion business. Okay, in that business, you have people who create yarn, who convert the yarn into fabric, who convert that into clothes or into home furnishings, and then who sell. Multi-stage. Okay, now when that market is there, okay, so in his case, the revenue streams, what do you think would be the revenue streams for him? He's building a marketplace. Any idea? Commissions, yes. That's the obvious one. What other revenue streams beyond the commissions? Yep, leveraging data. Okay, what other revenue streams can there be? No, yes, maybe not revenue, not advertisements. So he can take commissions. So there can be logistics in the middle, right? There can be financing. So there are multiple revenue streams within a single business that can be there. Okay. So you have to kind of think from that perspective as to how you will actually make money. And for each one of these things, again, you have to kind of collect data and everything. Okay, how you will actually, and then it kind of goes into the kind of resources, the team and everything else, and the cost structure and everything else comes later. Okay, so that's how you actually define a business. Okay, this is what, when you go and pitch to the customer, to the VC, when you build a pitch deck, you are actually addressing all of these 9 points in the pitch deck. Okay, if you literally think about it, right, the 10 or 12 page pitch deck will actually cover all of these parameters. What is your business model? What is your revenue? How you're going to serve it? What's your customer journey? Which is the customer? What's the problem? All of that, right? What's the market size? What's the SAM, SOM, TAM? All of that, right? Each one of these addresses one of those slides in the pitch deck. Okay, but it doesn't stop over there. Okay, when you actually, I don't know if you guys have seen this viral pathway or not. Okay, this viral pathway came from Village Capital, and it says venture investment readiness and awareness levels. And basically it says at what level, who's going to fund you, where you are as a startup. or as a venture. Okay, if you see over there, in their case, they are actually talking about you have these 9 levels, and in the 9 levels, you actually have 8 pillars that drive those levels. Okay, this is what that actually looks like. At various levels, you are actually collecting that data to prove that you are at that point. Okay, so if you pivot, you may be at, so there were startups who were at, say, level 7 before COVID, and they had to pivot. When they pivoted, they used the technology somewhere else and moved it into a different kind of market segment. They actually came down because in certain, for say, their product market fit might have been much lower. Okay, so lots and lots of people look at this aspect, and you kind of keep measuring yourself as a startup where you are. Are you moving up? Are you not moving up? Where is the diagnostic you have to do? What is the data you collect to prove that you are at which level? Okay, and as a startup, you will know very well, even if you misclassify yourself against this data, the funders will put you into the right level. They won't, if you go and say that I have this, but they are expecting you to be at a different point, they will absolutely put you down. I would encourage you guys to look at, this particular framework. Okay. And to prove that you have, again, you have to build this minimum viable product. Okay. When you go to a customer, okay, so I've seen lots of companies build a minimum viable product, which is not functional, which is just getting you the relevant data. But they'll build an app, a small app, where people will go play around with it. They will collect data on that to prove that people are actually willing to do, say, so like Zappos, right? They actually had built out something where people were looking for they released that web page, and people were going over there and clicking. They were collecting the clicks to prove that there's a market. Okay, so this minimum viable product is a whole lot of, before you actually build out a complete product, you have to actually build this minimum viable product. You have to show it to customers. You have to collect that data. Okay, otherwise what will happen is, as a startup, you will actually build something which the market doesn't need. Okay, you will actually waste money over there, waste money and time. Okay, and that kind of brings me to, and once you found the product, you have to kind of go and find this product market fit. Okay, if you dream of raising Series A, you have to actually prove that you hit product market fit. Okay, so proving product market fit is that the product you are able to do, there's a desirability, there's enough in the market. Okay, there's a desirability for that product, your viability, that you are able to do it at that price point, and profitability at that point. Okay, and you can feasibly do it. The technical feasibility is there. So these are 3 things that you have to prove before you will say that you've got product market fit, and a person who's funding you for Series A will actually fund you. Okay. So that brings me, I'll kind of skip this one, but lots of times, I mean, you would have seen these pirate metrics or R framework, which is heavily used in digital marketing or a SaaS world, which is acquisition, activation, retention, referral, revenue, right? This is something, especially if you've got a SaaS business, or you're looking at a SaaS business, B2B, B2, especially B2C SaaS business. Okay, as a startup, if you don't have these metrics, nobody's going to actually, and you've not done the analysis of how you're going to drive that. Okay, nobody's going to actually give you any credit. Okay, and that kind of brings me to all of these things that startups actually look at. Okay, the burn rate, the CAC, customer acquisition cost, LTV, if you are a marketplace, then GMV, otherwise, whether you're a B2B or a B2C, MRR, ARR, TCVs, all of these things. All the time you're collecting this data. All the time you are actually, as a startup, analyzing how to drive these numbers. Okay, it does not matter. So some of them may apply to the B2C world, some of them may apply somewhere else, but generally in today's day and age, when we are talking of I've not seen any venture today which is not that social, mobile, analytics, and cloud based. Okay, in today's day and age, if you build a venture that does not meet these 4 criteria, okay, you are not going to survive. Okay, my business works for a particular market, right? I have my social media team, right, analyzing traction in the social media domain. Okay, what type of posting has actually acquired me? So we've actually analyzed, when my team posts the video, we get the maximum traction. Okay, when we repost somebody, we don't get enough, right? When we just post an image, a little bit, right? So those kind of things you have to do. Okay, you have to build a brand. So these are the things that you are always looking to acquire that data and analyze. Okay, and if you do all of that, you kind of go up this journey of valuations. Last year's funding values, I think this year then some of these numbers are even better. But essentially, the seed round last year was on an average 1.1 with a valuation of 7.5. Series A was, average 13, average valuation 22. Okay, Series B, 32, valuation 58, and Series C 55, 115. Right? This is the game you are ultimately playing. Okay, so as a startup, that's what you are doing. But to achieve those valuations, to hit those numbers, you have to continuously kind of keep building those things. But let's look at some of the things that actually, so I've kind of mentioned as a startup, all right? But let's talk slightly differently. How can analytics actually, so in your opinion, all right, as a consumer of analytics, okay, you are analyzing your business, right? You're calculating these metrics and building. But as a consumer of analytics, how can an average startup actually use analytics to kind of drive down their own cost? Any ideas? No? No ideas how startups can actually use. So let me take a case study. Okay, supporting decision. Okay, see, one of the things as a startup, right? The decision making is one of the easiest things. Okay, but let me give you, right? So, okay, so one of the things, the most important way analytics can actually support is by driving down cost. Okay, so in any business, if you look at a business, analytics actually helps you achieve 3 things. Either drive up your efficiency, okay, help you get greater capacity, and then get to revenue. That's the general trend in any company, right? So first you will use your data to just identify where you are inefficient. Okay, then you will use that to be able to do more with the same, right? So let's say you are, it's a retail chain. first you will try to increase the efficiency of a single store. Then you will say that how can I apply it across all the stores to enhance my capacity? And then you will start using that to kind of try to get more revenue in, right? That's the general trend in most businesses. So even as a startup, okay, you will start, once you kind of get to a particular stage, right, you will start looking at tools and tricks to enhance your, efficiency and capacity. Okay. I've seen quite a few startups, especially who are in the B2C space, deploy chatbots. Because you are getting queries, the team is 5 or 7 people. Okay. The customer has installed something and now he's asking for help with some support decision, right? Oh, this is not working, that's not working, how do I do this or that? So deploying a chatbot gets you, it's cheap. The cost of a single chatbot kind of operation and in today's date is like a few cents. Okay. So the chatbot can actually reduce the load on the key developer to help. So, so how do I send a payment? A lot of these kind of things, the chatbot, they are deploying chatbots, simple chatbot, not a complicated chatbot. A very simple chatbot takes care of that. Okay. Another area where, like in my company, we are doing, right, is again, efficiency, recruitment. So as we are recruiting engineers and data scientists, we actually work with another startup which does just automating the recruitment, online recruitments and other things, testing. It removes the load from my team to actually do that initial, screening of candidates. Okay, so then let's take some of the other startups. Okay, so I'm not talking from the product side of things. Okay, what business you are in. I'm talking as a business, how you can actually use this. Okay, now certainly the third area is of course marketing, right? We talked about ARR. Okay, absolutely, right? So these are, and then we are now, of course, automating a lot of things. Okay, at our level, we are a software startup, all right? So how many builds are going? What is the efficiency? Where the bugs are coming, etc., etc. Even adding analytics on top of our products to ensure that nothing breaks. Okay, so that why we do that is because that relieves my team, my developers and my team from actually looking at that. Okay, so when they are not looking at that thing, they are actually adding value, customer facing value. Otherwise, they're just solving problems. Okay, so that is one. But from business case analytics, let's talk about analytics businesses. And I actually take kind of 3 case studies, okay, to kind of talk about how in today's day AI and how that is actually enabling you to kind of go ground up and actually speed up things. Okay, so have you heard of this company called Ant Financial? Very famous.
Yes, sir.
What is it famous for?
So providing microfinances to small companies, it's part of Alibaba.
Yeah. Okay, good. But what is it infamous for now?
So it was publishing an IPO which has been stopped by the Chinese government.
Right. Okay.
The biggest IPO.
So, biggest IPO. Okay. So why is it the biggest IPO in the world? What is that core thing why they are getting that. So I mean, they are ultimately just providing financial services, right? Give a loan, sell insurance, do payments. There's so many of them. So how come they are the biggest IPO?
So because they used analytics to great an extent, they devised algorithms that would actually calculate credit scores for different to different clients, and so
Now,
they're
now
pretty much.
that's not it. I mean, every bank, everybody is doing that.
So they have a
So,
payments app, so perhaps they are sitting on a transactional flow of data which can be monetized to a great extent.
no, everybody is doing that. So why is it that they got that valuation, or how come that became that big? Okay, let me explain. Okay, they built that entire thing. So if you have to give a loan, right, you have to do approvals. Okay, if you have to give, even if today, right, you have to, if you have to sell insurance, you have to give approvals. Okay, you are doing portfolio management, you have to do approvals. Okay, what they did was from ground up, they deployed AI ML to automate those functions, remove the human factor. Okay, so what they have been able to do is serve 10 times more clients with 1/10 the staff. Okay, 10 times more clients with 1/10 the staff. Okay, so when now they have to go into another market, if you go, say, if you go into another market, right, you have to hire people for that market, the financial people and all of that. Okay, to be able to serve that market. Okay, Policy Bazaar, if you look at the number of staff they have, is like massive. Okay, to be able to serve those things. The Policy Bazaar, right? They are hiring so many people. They are able to scale without having to spend time and money on deploying that many people, because they built it, they invested in that level of AI to actually automate those functions. Okay, so if you're thinking about, I'm kind of digressing slightly, but if you're thinking about ideas, right, today, analytics or AI based businesses, the way to look at it is ground up. Okay, how do you actually put everything ground up to do things faster and better without actually incurring cost? Okay, so that was and financial. Okay, the second case study, it's not a startup, but I'll still take that case study. It's Adidas. Okay, they allow you to order a highly personalized and customized sneaker. Right, you can go onto the website, you can change the material, you can change the color, you can change any and everything on the sneaker. So it becomes a lot size of one. Okay, within it goes on to, it does not disrupt their production line. Okay, it goes directly onto the normal production line, and within 10 days it will get shipped to you at the normal cost. There's no change in cost. Okay, so hyperscale customization and personalization is possible. Okay, I mean, even when we talk about the Alibaba case, right, when they offer you something, it will be hyperscale customized and personalized to you, what product you want, right? Of course, they want you to kind of scale that, right, and get that, so you don't go anywhere. Okay, so of course that hyperscale operation, hyperscale customization is the second thing that AI is now doing at a business level. Okay, but I think the third example I'll take is a very interesting and innovative startup out in US. It's called bottomless.com. Okay, now anybody heard of that? Okay, so what is interesting about these guys is they are a subscription startup. They say that they will get you fresh ground coffee, okay, at your doorstep. You subscribe to their service, they will get that to you, and it will get, you before you run out of coffee. So what they've done is they ship a scale, right, weigh scale like this size of a phone, okay, which is internet connected. All they ask you to do is when you get the coffee bag, keep it on that. Okay, so now it is continuously calculating how you are consuming. It is that scale of per person when you're going to run out of coffee in your house. And then their algos will order, okay, from the closest guy to you, so that in a few hours, freshly ground coffee will be in your house. Okay, so the third point that I'm making is this world of sensors and data and logistics and everything is the third area where now analytics AI is now helping. Okay, and I keep using the word AI compared to analytics, because the traditional analytics that you will see from the statistical world is based on sampling and kind of linear work based on linearities. Today, when we are talking neural nets, you are basically talking non-linearities, right? Those microscopic kind of correlations is what you are looking for. Okay, so that is where, if you, I mean, you guys are the from the analytics batch, but looking at if you understanding the non-linearities that neural nets are able to pick out are important, because that is the only way you can get that hyperscale personalization and customization. Okay. So having said that, we are down to like 15 odd minutes. So quickly, I'll kind of, any questions before I kind of walk you through our company as a case study? No questions? Okay, cool. So I'll go fast. I mentioned my company is based out of Calgary, and we actually, as a business, we have a subsidiary in Bangalore. Okay, but primarily as a business, we are actually solving the Canadian energy market. Now, if you look at it, right, in that particular, the energy market, the third largest oil reserves in the world are in that Western Canada. So actually, there's a question: do you think a startup can use big data? Sorry, what is the question over there? Let's look at that. Good question. So do you think a startup can use big data, considering the volume of data a startup will have is very limited? Okay. Let's answer this two ways. Okay. One way you answer is it depends on what problem you're solving. Okay. So I know startups that are working on, so India, it doesn't happen, but I know startups in Canada that are working on quantum computing. Okay. And quantum computing algorithms. The amount of data you need for that is not possibly available. So they are actually simulating a lot of that data. So and why I kind of bring this up is a lot of AI startups at that first stage, when you are to prove something, a lot of AI startups are now simulating the data to prove that algo will work or that methodology will work. Okay. So I'll give you an example. In that engineering space, right, they do complicated projects. Okay, and projects have risk. And if you are working on a project which is like $500 million or $1 billion install, the risk of a few days or weeks of delay is a massive, from a cost of money point of view, it's a massive delay. Okay, so we are now working on an AI bot that is sitting and assisting the project manager to calculate the risk of a project. But if you look at the data in a project, it's very, very, very nebulous and very haphazard. Okay, so my team has actually simulated a lot of data to prove that, you know, they are generating data, they are generating the variables themselves to prove that an AI algo can actually figure out where the delays are and start rescheduling things. And once they've done that, we will then put a bot in front of that to collect that make it into a user interface. Okay, so it depends as to what problem you're solving. Okay, the second part of it is where I kind of mentioned the customer. If you are in a B2B startup, that customer becomes extremely important, because if you build those relationships with early adopters, so even customers are very different, right? Different beings. So some of them will be innovative early adopters, others will be followers. So you have to go and find the early adopters. And the early adopters will give you, those innovative early adopters will give you data. Okay. So, and I'll again take my business case, all right? We have now, when we are working with some of these companies, so some of the big giants who are very risk averse, they've not given us data. But we now have multiple years of production data from a number of customers. So again, that customer discovery that I mentioned, right? Going and talking to the customer and saying, this is the problem I'll solve, you will get that data. So that thing is equally important as a startup, especially if you are in the B2B space. Okay. The other thing that a startup can also do, a lot of that today, you also have a lot of open data. Okay. So if you have to prove things, you can pick up open data, build your prototype on that to prove things to kind of then get ahead. Okay. So that is the thing. Now, the other part of it is that's where when you are also, you have an idea, right? You can see a business case, but you need idea. You need to collect data. Okay. That's where the fund investment also goes in lots of time, right? I can build a business like this, but this needs this much investment to collect this data. Okay. Have I kind of answered your question, Shweta?
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Okay. So anyway, in this particular market, right, the challenges were efficiency, okay, and especially with commodity prices and climate change. So what was happening was these markets are there, these their profitability. They were profitable when a lot of investments went in when the oil was at $100. Okay, now the oil has fallen, right? So they earlier, when the oil was at $100, anytime they had a problem, they would deploy people. Okay, now you can't do that. So we saw an opportunity to deploy AI and automation to actually help reduce the cost of operations. Okay. Now what they're saying is, and this is something, right? So the impact of climate change on this market. Okay, today in US, if you have to raise money for a fossil fuel project versus a renewable energy project, the cost of money for a renewable energy project is 1/3 the cost of money for a fossil fuel project. Okay, that is the impact for these companies. So even if they have to pick up the money from the bank, the interest rates are higher. Okay, the only way they can then show that is how they can actually reduce the cost of operations. So we saw that opportunity, and we said, okay, we can actually deploy AI and all these techniques to actually now reduce your cost of operation. Okay, so again, the market segment and the problem or the pain point. Okay. Alternately, right? So I kind of mentioned this. Okay, but from a market point of view, now this number is even higher, right? You talk about the TAM, right? The TAM last year for AI for oil and gas was $4 billion by 2025. Okay. This year, actually, the TAM has grown by 2025. I think it's gone to $5 billion. Okay, because of COVID. Okay, what really happened was, because of COVID, digitalization businesses have grown, right? So anything that is helping digitalization, okay, is actually becoming bigger. Okay, so application in this sector that we can talk about. Okay, there are a number of applications, right? From reducing the pipeline scheduling to predictive maintenance to spare inventory, oil field field office efficiency, loads and loads and loads of things. Okay, one of the things is this particular sector has been heavily instrumented. Okay, when I talk about we got data. Okay, so from one of the customers, 4 years of instrument data. Okay, what do you think was the size of instrument data alone, right? 4 years of instrument data, how much was that? Okay, I'm not talking image data. This is just instrument, small bytes. Okay, so if you have a Fitbit, let me give you an example. If you have a Fitbit, right, it generates probably around 1 megabytes per day for you. Okay, so now I'm talking, right? Just take a guess. How much was 4 years data from these guys? Instrument data. Take a guess. How many people are from the analytics course? Everyone? If everyone is there, then I want those answers. Come on. You're not being marked. No idea. Okay, but throw a number. I want to hear numbers. 3 to 4 terabyte, 1,000 terabytes. Okay, interesting. Do you know how much a terabyte is? Okay, so Anu wins the prize. There's roughly around 240 GB. Okay, this is instrument data, right? Now, why I keep talking instrument data is, if you look at a HD movie, right? A single movie will be like 5 or 6 GB. Okay, but that's not what we are talking about over here. There's just so many sensors. Okay, so that massive amount of data. So this organization or this area sits on that data. Okay, so the point what I'm making is they actually have a data deluge. Okay, and today, one of the advantages of analytics or AI is its ability to actually make sense of or go beyond the human thinking, right? Correlate and identify things that are beyond the human thinking to achieve. So there are two aspects today what AI does. Either it provides you the context of the way humans think, which is Siri and all of that, right? Conversational AI. Okay, how people think, how you see, and it'll react, right? So you teach that. That's one. Or the other is where you can go where you're talking about a massive deluge of data, which is impossible for humans to actually figure out the correlations, what moves with what. Then that massive amount of compute will allow you to figure that one out. So we are actually solving the second problem in that market. Okay. So in essence, what we are doing is this, what we are calling distributed AI, because you have got all these oil wells. Each well interacts with the reservoir, which interacts with the second oil well, all right? And each well has its own kind of, each well may have its own state. One well may have had a repair, the other may not, and each one is behaving differently. So now it becomes a very complicated problem to figure out what the production will be, how to schedule production, or how to actually, so if you had a person on that particular field for 10 years, he would understand that. Okay, he would have gathered that tribal knowledge. But now we are actually deploying algorithms to actually learn that and even go beyond that. Okay, so can we now figure out when something is going to break? So if before something breaks, if you can actually send somebody and fix that, your production goes up, right? So those kind of problems we are solving. Okay, and that means, you know, we are actually treating each well as its own agent, and then doing this reinforcement learning on top of it. Okay, so that's just the technology. From a business point of view, from just getting to the market, right? That means that you have to build those channels. So channels have been built through partnerships with the engineering companies, system integrators, the consortia, and direct customer sales. Okay, that's the second part of the business. And again, each channel is then my team actually has plans for what each channel will, how each channel is actually operating, which channel is better, which channel is worse. Okay, and also that leads into the commissions and other things that we are offering to the different channels. Okay, and I think the last bit is the IP. Okay, in our case, the IP is, again, it kind of stands on these 4 pillars. So one is the mastery of data. Okay, understanding that data, building people into the company who understand that data extensively. Okay, how that data behaves, what are the parameters, etc. Then the second part is just the model precision. Okay, even if you build the model, now the third part is the platform. Okay, the platform becomes important because now you're talking about an industrial process where things can't break down. So the platform needs to actually be sustainable and be able to scale things. Okay, you can't simply say, hey, I've just run a model. No, that doesn't work. It needs to work 24/7. Okay, and the last bit is the business model, right? In our case, what we've done is we've innovated not just on the analytics side, but how you actually move this into a SaaS model, into a subscription model. So away from a CapEx to an OpEx model. Okay, so all of these things, all of these things are forming our IP. Okay, and as a startup, again, all of these things feed into how you actually build your value. Okay, and that's that, right? I mean, you also, as a startup, you leverage a startup ecosystem. So we are supported by Microsoft, we are supported by AWS, and a whole lot of Canadian entities, and that's that. Okay.